I own a chronograph. 3 registers, tachometer bezel. I have never timed anything with it. Not a lap, not an egg, not one event in my life that needed measuring to the second. For 4 years, I told people I bought it for the engineering. That was a lie. I bought it because I am afraid nothing I do is urgent enough to be worth timing, and a stopwatch on my arm implies that something might be. Nobody buys a watch for the reason they give you. The stated reason is heritage, or engineering, or value retention, or design. All true. None of them is why the card came out. The real reason is always something the buyer suspects other people have already noticed about him, and the watch is the treatment. 13 fears, 13 prescriptions, and I am standing inside most of them. Number 13 wears no watch at all, on purpose, and he is the most insecure human being on this list. We will get there. Number 1, the fear that your success is invisible. You did the work, the number moved, and nobody outside your own house has any idea. Your job title means nothing to anyone standing near you at a wedding. There is no receipt, so you go and buy one. Rolex is the receipt. It is the one object a stranger can price within a rough band in a second, in any country, without speaking a word of your language. Then it starts running you. You push the cuff back at dinner and pretend you were fixing a sleeve. You built a small stage and now you stand on it daily. But it works. And that is the irritating part. The crown sits there because a century of people agreed the thing underneath it is good, and it holds value better than almost anything you own. At least he admits he wants to be seen. Number 2 wants something colder. He wants to be graded. Number 2, the fear of being a consumer instead of an expert. He cannot stand somebody looking at his wrist and saying shopping. Money is not the problem. Being seen as a man who only had money is the problem. So he buys Grand Seiko, Zaratsu, polished cases, dials pressed to look like birch bark, a seconds hand that glides instead of ticking. From across a bar, it reads as a nice silver watch. Up close, it is one of the most finished objects in the industry. Which is the point. He bought an examination only qualified examiners can mark. He wants the one guy in the corner who leans in and says, "Oh, is that the spring drive?" And he is not wrong. That finishing outclasses watches 2 tiers above it. He picked correctly. He just also picked an audience of about 9 people. If you are enjoying this, subscribe. I do this every week, and I am always somewhere in the roast. Number 3 does not want 9 people. He wants the room. Number 3, the fear of walking into a room and nothing happening. You arrive, you nod, and the temperature does not shift by a degree. For most people, that is a Tuesday. For this man, it is a small emergency. Richard Mille, a tonneau case the size of a household appliance, a skeletonized movement, carbon and sapphire arranged so light does something strange when he moves his hand. And he stops being able to enter a room without it. The watch is the announcement now, and leaving it at home feels like arriving unintroduced. But that is real material science. Movements suspended on cables so they survive impacts that would destroy a normal watch. Cases built from motorsport composites. It is loud because the engineering underneath is extreme. Number 4 hates everything I just said. Number 4, the fear of looking like you overpaid. He would rather be right than impressive. And he needs you to know he did the reading. Tudor. Same lineage, in-house chronometer certified movements, a fraction of the outlay. He has the shield instead of the crown, and he made an argument about it once, unprompted, at a barbecue. Then being right becomes the whole personality. Somebody says, "Nice watch," and he answers with a specification sheet. On paper, he is correct. The movements are excellent. The build is not a compromise. And the money he did not spend is still in his account. He solved the problem. He just cannot stop telling you he solved it. The next one is not solving a wrist problem at all. Number 5, the fear of being physically overlooked. This is the man who has spent his life being slightly less noticed in a doorway than he would like. He cannot change his height, or the way a room rearranges itself around larger men. But he can change one measurement, and it lives on his forearm. Panerai, or anything past 44 millimeters. Cushion case, sandwich dial, a crown guard the size of a door handle, lugs hanging over the edge of the wrist like the watch is trying to escape. Sleeves get chosen around it, photographs get angled to include it. He answered a body question with an accessory. And he knows the trade was uneven. But those watches earn it. The legibility is exceptional because they were built for men reading dials in dark water, and the military lineage is authentic. It just cannot do any of that above the elbow. Number 6 needs presence too. He calls it preparedness. Number 6, the fear of being useless in a crisis that has not happened. The grid fails, the road floods, and everybody looks around for whoever has a plan. He needs to be that person, and the crisis has not arrived, so he prepares by buying equipment. G-Shock. 11 of them. Shock resistant to a specification written for construction sites, solar charge so it never dies, atomic timekeeping so it is never wrong, rated to 200 meters for a man who swims twice a year. He wears one. He uses none of the functions. The other 10 sit in a drawer in their tins, fully charged, waiting for a Tuesday that never comes. And still, that watch is the most durable object he owns. If the day ever does arrive, he will be the one person still holding accurate time. Buying 11 was strange. Buying one was correct. Number 7 has the same fear. He has already lost the argument. Number 7. The fear that you have become a man who sits down all day. This is the meanest one on the list because it is the most common. He used to climb things, or at least intended to. Now there is a chair, a screen, a commute, and a body slowly becoming a shape that matches the chair. Apple Watch Ultra. Titanium case, dive rating, a siren loud enough to carry across a canyon, a compass with waypoints, a bezel designed for gloves. Every decision on that watch describes a life lived at altitude. Then he pairs it with his calendar. The watch says mountain, the calendar says meetings. The siren has never been used. The compass was opened once, in a car park, as a demonstration. The dive rating protects it from a shower. And every day it tells him the truth. Stand up. Move. You've been sitting for 50 minutes again. He bought an instrument built for expeditions and turned it into a device that measures how little he moves, which is the most honest thing any watch on this list does to its owner. That is why it works. The mountain never happens, but the counting does, accurately and without mercy, every day he does not go. He is being audited by his own wrist, and he keeps putting it back on, which means somewhere in there, he still intends to go. Number 8 does not want to be audited. He wants to be approved of. Number 8, the fear of being money with no eye. Not being seen as poor, being seen as rich and tasteless. The man who bought the biggest thing available because it was the biggest thing available. He would rather be thought broke than vulgar. Cartier, a tank or a Santos. Roman numerals, blued steel hands, a case shaped like a piece of furniture from a period he could name if you pushed him. It is not the loudest watch in the room, and that is the whole argument. Then he develops opinions about proportion. He will tell you the case shape matters more than the movement, which is a sentence he could not have produced 5 years ago and needs you to hear him say it. But he chose well. Those shapes are documented design history, drawn before the industry had decided what a wristwatch even was, and they still look correct a century later. He wanted an eye. He borrowed one. Number 9 wants something Cartier cannot give him, because too many people already agree it is beautiful. Number 9, the fear of owning the same thing as everybody else. He is more afraid of common than he is of broken. And that sentence explains his entire collection. New means available, and available means somebody else can have one. Vintage only. Faded bezels, lume that took 40 years to arrive at that color, a dial that turned brown in a way the factory never intended. Nothing he owns runs particularly well. Everything he owns is the only one in the room. Then he starts choosing damage. He will pass on a clean example because the scratched one has more story, and then explain the scratch to people who did not ask. And yet he is the reason any of it survives. He pays a specialist to keep a movement alive that the manufacturer stopped supporting before he was born. He is a conservator with a hobby budget, and unique is a real thing he earned. Number 10 is the most complicated man here, and I need you honest during this one. Number 10, the fear of looking like you care. You know exactly who this is. Serious money, and a black resin Casio on his wrist at the conference. He will tell you he does not think about watches. He will say it costs less than lunch. He is lying, and he is lying with unbelievable precision. He selected a specific one at a specific tier, broadcasting a specific message, which is that he is so far past the game he no longer plays it. That is not indifference. That is the most calculated risk in the room. And he cannot leave it unmentioned. Nobody asks a man about a Casio. He brings it up. He is running the same signal as number 1, except he built his out of a refusal, which takes more effort, not less. But that watch is completely honest. It keeps perfect time, the battery lasts for years, and it is never claimed to be anything other than what it is. He picked the only watch on this list incapable of participating in a lie, then used it to tell one. Number 11 is at the other end of the same room trying to get in. Number 11. The fear of being excluded from a room you have not been invited to yet. He knows what a bezel insert is. He knows which movement sits in which reference. He can hold a conversation with anybody in the hobby. What he does not have is the entry fee. So he buys the shape, homage watches, or the replica depending on how far the fear has traveled. The right case, the right dial layout, wearing a name nobody recognizes, or a name that is not his to wear. He never fully relaxes. He turns the dial inward when he shakes hands. He is in the room all evening waiting for somebody to ask him something he cannot answer. Homage buyers become the most educated collectors we have because they had to learn the references from outside, and half of them are wearing something serious within 5 years. He was not faking membership. He was doing an apprenticeship. Number 12 got into the room first and will not let you forget it. Number 12, the fear of arriving after everybody else. Being late is worse than being wrong for this man. He does not need the best watch. He needs to have found it before you did, because discovery is the only status he respects. The obscure microbrand. A 40-piece production run, a founder who answers emails personally, a forum thread with 9 replies where he wrote 4 of them. The second a big channel covers it, the watch dies for him and he sells it. He was never attached to the watch. He was attached to being early, and the crowd ruined the object by turning up. But the whole independent industry runs on him. Those brands exist because a few hundred people sent money to a stranger for a watch that did not exist yet. Everything interesting outside the big groups was funded by men who needed to be first. Which brings us back to the man I promised you at the start. Number 13, the fear of being seen trying. He wears nothing, deliberately, bare wrist, and he will tell you he uses his phone, that watches are jewelry, that he has never understood the obsession. He says this at a table where 3 other men are wearing watches, unprompted, which should tell you everything. Because opting out only counts if people notice you opted out. A man who truly does not think about watches has no position on them. He has nothing to say, because there is nothing in his head to say it about. This one has a whole argument prepared. He took the single move on the board that cannot be beaten by spending. No watch means no signal. No signal means no judgment. And he never has to be graded on taste or money or knowledge again. He removed himself from the competition so visibly that the removal became his entry. And this is where I have to be fair to him. Wearing nothing takes a discipline the rest of us do not have. He never scrolls listings at midnight. He does not own a drawer full of expensive regret. He wanted to be a man who does not care what other men think, and by putting nothing on his arm every morning for years, he ended up closer to that man than anybody else on this list. He cheated his way into being right. Back to my chronograph. 4 years, 3 registers, never timed a single thing. I have looked at it during meetings that did not need timing, in a kitchen where the oven has a clock on the front. The fear is exactly where I left it. Here is what I did not expect. The watch does treat it. My life never became urgent. But an object built by people who believed seconds were worth respecting sits on my arm and asks me quietly, every morning, whether I agree with them. That is the pattern across all 13. The fear is real, the treatment is honest, and the watch is not the problem. The watch is the only part of the arrangement doing its job properly. And there is a 14th entry I left off the list on purpose. It is the man who makes a video about what your watch says about you. The fear is being wrong about people. The treatment is being the one holding the list. So tell me your number in the comments. Not your friend's number, yours. And if you are about to type number 10, sit with it for a second first, because you already know why you picked that one. Subscribe if you want the next one, because I have got a list of watches men buy specifically to prove they have stopped competing. And every single one of them costs more than the watch they were competing with.